Hey, 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 we are coming to you in just 30 seconds. Hey, 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 Cyndilu coming to you with a live recording of the beBOLDyou podcast. We record it live here on Facebook and it becomes a podcast later down the road. We'll let you know when that episode is out as an actual podcast. In the meantime, if you're joining us live or watching it on the replay, I hope you're enjoying this conversation today with Char from Chartown Entertainment. I'm super excited to have her here. I was on her show, Just One Thing,
yes,
which you can see on her side, her logo there. So I was on her show a few weeks back and it was a blast. And that came out of actually the pre-interview conversation that you and I had. And you were like, I want you on my show too, because I love your story. So it was like awesome. So much fun. So welcome to the show. I'm going to let you do an introduction after I tell folks who I am in case it's their first time listening to me. So in case it's your first time listening to me, I am Cyndilu. I'm the creator and founder of the beBOLDyou personality expression system, where we help you with becoming bold you by figuring out and becoming more self-aware of yourself using assessments and different other personal development tools in order to know your best self better and know others better so that your communication is better back and forth and you all have a new perspective on life and are willing to look at each other's perspectives. Whew, that was a mouthful. And I am so excited to be here today with Char from Chartown Entertainment, and I'm going to let her introduce herself so that she can share all the wonderfulness with you that is fresh and wonderful for her today.
Well, I am Charmel McMillan, and I am president and CEO of Chartown Entertainment. As Cyndilu said, everyone calls me Char or Chartown, and I've been in business 26 years. And I really love what I do. I work with entertainers and sports figures and music artists, multi-platinum producers, authors, and a lot of comedians, over 200 careers. And so I have a lot of stuff going on. So I'm sure she's going to ask me about some of that as we proceed through the interview. So I don't want to take away from the actual interview, but that's what I do.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with like your number one question that I asked you. Like, how did you get into the entertainment business? Like, how did you end up doing what you do?
I was a professional engineer, believe it or not. So my degrees are in engineering. I have an undergrad in engineering, a master's in engineering, a master's in business management, concentration in contract law, so nothing entertainment. And so I was a well-paid engineer by the time I graduated from college and immediately went to my master's program. But I had this divine epiphany that I was supposed to be doing something different. And I remember I prayed, and I actually would wear my little business suits to work and have on my high heels and look really, fit the part of an engineer and pretty classically dressed, and I was the only woman on my team. And so I was designing collapsible water tanks and fuel tanks and underground pipelines for fuel to the troops. That's what I was doing. And so I was standing outside in my heels and my designer suit, looking over these tanks I had designed, and asked God, I said, there's got to be something else for me. I know it's not what you know, it's who you know. Please bless my life. And so about 6 months later, I had an epiphany, like literally a message from God. You're about to go into the entertainment industry. And I was like, I don't know anything about the entertainment industry. I don't know anybody in entertainment. It was a horrible epiphany. But I believe God, I've been through so many things at a young age that I just was ready to trust God no matter what. And so I was like, where do I start? I tried to put together marketing plans and I tried to put together this, and none of it made sense. And so I just started getting quiet and listening for God's voice for direction. And so he told me to write letters to the people I wanted to meet, no matter how far-fetched it was. And so it kind of started there. And one night, one of the letters, I wanted to get to the owner of a comedy club. That was put in my spirit. So I went there to give him the letter, and he ended up hiring me to be chief operating officer of this large comedy club. I was just going to give him a letter to say, could I interview you? And he ended up hiring me that night. He needed help and took me backstage. And so it was like crazy, like a whirlwind, like it didn't feel real. And so next thing I know, I'm working this comedy club. And so we got into it like 3 days later. I wasn't really working. I was volunteering because I was like, well, this is kind of what I want to do. I want to shadow him and learn the industry. So I don't mind being here for free, even though I was doing, a lot of stuff for operations. And so day 3, I went to him and I said, we got into it because he didn't need me that day, but he didn't tell me. I lived an hour and a half from there. So I was so upset, and I'm 23 years old, but you're going to respect my time. I knew that back then. Think 3 things matter to me: my money, my time, and my family. So you're not going to disrespect any of the 3. So I went to him, and he's a huge star. And so I went to him and said, you could have called me if you didn't need me. And so he talked down to me and had his bodyguards and everybody behind him. And he said, somebody tell her I'm on a national tour. I don't have time to babysit her. And so I said, well, somebody tell him nobody knows who I am, but my time matters too. And so he said, start paying her. And so I didn't know what to ask him to pay because I was just an engineer. And so I knew I got paid like close to $25 an hour. As an engineer, I was really top paid. And that was like 26 years ago almost. And so he said, give her whatever she wants. I need her here. So I became like the highest paid person probably around the entertainment industry working at a comedy club. And so that's how I started. And all of the major entertainers and comedians started coming through because it was one of the top clubs. And I would pray every night because I'm an introvert that God would let them talk to me first and me not have to say something to them. And so before I got out my car every night, I would see who the headliner was. I said, God, let him say something to me. So I wanted to introduce myself. And inevitably, every night, the headliners would come over and start talking to me. And that's how the network began to grow. And say, what do you do? Tell me about yourself. And they were asking questions that really didn't make sense because I was just there to make sure things ran smoothly operationally. And the network grew. One night I met someone saw me and people were watching. You never know who's watching you. Someone had been watching me.
Oh, true.
Yes. And so someone had been watching me, and I knew there was this lady who would run around. I didn't know what she did. She would come in. She seemed to know everybody. And she came up to me one night and said, the head of Def Jam, which is Russell Simmons' company, which is a huge company in the States. And I'm sure he has things going on globally. But they said they want to talk to you about the comedy portion, which was a huge television show back then on HBO. And so they want to talk to me. And so she said, yes, the talent exec for the show wants to talk to you. She hired me to go on tour and be talent exec for the tour. She said, all the comedians say they know you. They love working with you. You're professional. You're young. And these men take orders from you. She said, you're the person I need as talent exec to be over all the talent on the tour. And it was like 30 of the top comedians. They were rotating 30 of the top comedians, including like Kevin Hart. And I mean, all these different people who were just starting out back then. And so that's how I got into doing tours. And it was just happening so fast. All that happened in less than a year. Meanwhile, I was also meeting with the people I wrote letters to and prayed over. So I met with Colin Powell. He responded to my letter. I met with Robert Johnson, who was the president of BET Studios, which was worth way back then, 26 years ago, $700 million. When he sold BET to Viacom, it was worth $3 billion. He mentored me. I was writing letters to Santa Claus, basically. I didn't know these men. There were yellow pages back then. And I would go into the yellow pages and just look up names and the companies and put attention whoever I wanted to talk to. And Colin Powell was the only one that was different because I got this dream job as what was it? I was on a women's executive leadership program, and it lasted 1 year. And part of it was to do detail assignments at agencies, government agencies you weren't familiar with. So I thought, because I'm 23 years old, I thought they were going to give me a roadmap to success. You know, I go in this program, here's what you do to be successful. I get my little certificate in a year, and I just go on to greatness. That's what I thought was going to happen. But that's not what happened. At the opening lunch, and they told us, what you make of this program is up to you. What you achieve in this program is up to you. And I'm like, well, how does this work? And so then they said, you're going to need to meet with people that are above you. You're going to need to meet with the leaders in your organizations. And so that's when God, at that luncheon, that opening luncheon, is when God started speaking to me, and I started writing down General Colin Powell, whatever names he was giving me. I didn't know these people at all. And it was like, I mean, it was like so far-fetched, to even be writing down these names. And so there was a young lady who I didn't know. It's like 500 people in the room too, right? So you're competing for these positions and stuff with 500 other people who are trying to be future executives. So this girl was sitting beside me, and she said, what are you writing? And she said, I just saw your list. It's all these huge people. She said, why are you writing their names down? I said, because I'm going to meet them during this year. And so she said, I just met you, but I believe you. And so she said, well, how? And I said, I'm going to pray. And I said, somehow God is going to open up the way to meet these people I don't know at all. And so
that's awesome. Oh my gosh, girl.
At that luncheon, I got this 6-inch binder. It was like huge, and so it had like thousands and thousands of possible opportunities where you could go work to get more experience and executive experience. So I was like, God, how am I going to look through thousands of pages and figure out what opportunity might work for me? And the people may or may not still be hiring, or bringing people on board. So I did this, Cyndilu. I threw it up in the air, and I caught a page, and I prayed over the page. I said, God, let this be it. And that's how I picked my assignment. And I sent a fax letter over, and the lady called me back. Longer story short, she was the head of one of the heads of the Department of Justice, and specifically prisoner operations. So all of the immigrants and things of that nature coming into the country illegally, it was the U.S. Marshal. She was over, I think it was 112 U.S. Marshal districts. So all of the marshals across the country. And so she told me she wanted me in my interview with her to decide whether she was going to bring me on. She told me she wanted me to write a $20 million proposal to combat tuberculosis among U.S. Marshals because of people being illegally brought into our country who were diseased. And so it was creating a huge sickness among marshals across the country. So I ended up doing that part, but this is the part where I met Colin Powell. She handed me day 3 a blue book, and she said, this is the blue book. Be careful with it and make sure you give it back, but it will help you on your journey. I thought when I glanced through it, I thought it was like a yellow page with blue pages. You know what I mean? Like a small yellow pages with blue pages though. So I didn't know what it was. So after a week or two, I decided to thumb through it, and I saw names of people I wanted to meet, like Colin Powell. So I thought it would put me in touch with his assistant. So I said, well, or somebody at the White House or somebody, And so I said, well, I wrote down his address. I saw Thurgood Marshall Jr. I was like, I didn't even know that Thurgood Marshall had a son. And so I wrote that down. And so I called Thurgood Marshall Jr.'s office first, thinking I'd speak to a White House intern because he was legislative advisor to Vice President Gore at the time. So I thought I would talk to an intern or someone. So I had my little spiel together, explain why I needed a meeting with him. And so when I called, this young man answered the phone and said, hello, Thurgood Marshall Jr.'s office. And so I said, yes, I wanted to see if I could get an address for him or a correct number so I could meet with him. And so he said, you don't want to talk to me? And I said, this is you? So I realized the blue book was direct line to everybody across government, their direct lines. And so to call Colin Powell, who he was chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff at the time. And so I was scared to call him. So I just said, I'm going to write him a letter and take this direct address and write him a letter. And so and he responded maybe about 6 weeks later, something like that.
Well, you got to figure how many letters they get, right? Like, I mean, they must get tons. So, and I'm sure they don't respond to every letter.
It was a guy who called me from his office and said, everybody wants to meet with the general and they think it would be really cool, but he can't say yes to these letters. And I said, well, thank you so much for calling me personally. He said, for some reason, he wants to meet with you. So tell me when you have availability. And that's what happened.
I love it. I love it. Girl, you are definitely Not your typical introvert, because you were at least
No.
willing to step outside the box. But
Yeah, I mean, I don't really
are you
know
sure
what
are you
causes
sure
that.
you weren't are you sure you weren't actually a shy extrovert?
No, I'm a total introvert. I'm an observer of life. Like after this, I'm going to decompress because this took all my energy. Like I do interviews all the time. And so, so I go decompress. I'm going to play words with friends for the next, 4 or 5 hours. I'm going to probably eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and just be sitting around the house, no TV, just getting back into my space. I'm an introvert.
So that's where you're energized then. So,
Yes, I
so
love what I do.
that is one of I have these 10 questions that I ask folks, and I'm going to bring them up. Since you answered this one already, are you more introverted or extroverted? We can skip that one.
Total
What is
introvert.
your we just I just love people to get to know you a little bit better as a person, because you have so many stories, we could go for hours. So we'll do
As you
this, and
do.
then
I enjoyed you.
so what is your favorite color?
I really like bold colors. And so I would say I like black, but also like fuchsia. And like my sorority colors are pink and green. So I like the royal colors of pink and green, not
Yeah,
the more muted colors. I like the bold colors. So I like bold colors.
nice. And what quote or phrase encourages you the most?
Um, there was I know. There's a Bible verse, to whom much is given, much is required. And so I've always felt an extreme responsibility to those who come after me, to those who need help, especially young children and who have any type of challenges. That has always been the biggest part of my heart. And I feel it's my responsibility to avail myself and to help them as much as possible, increase programs and opportunities in terms of their health and welfare and education. So to whom much is given, much is required.
Awesome. And oops, what energizes you?
Um, I think making a difference in the lives of other people. I truly enjoy making other people's dreams and visions come true. So the mantra for my company for 26 years has been connecting your vision with reality. So that energizes me, and just I guess maybe my love language is people showing appreciation and gratitude. A thank you is good for me. That motivates me. When I know I've done something that makes you happy, that motivates me.
I love that. And what's been your favorite age?
My favorite age, trying to think, probably maybe the year I came into the entertainment industry was one of my favorite ages. Um, I think because I felt unlimited, and but I'm thankful for every day. But and people say I don't age, so that was a long time ago. But I think maybe when I came into the industry, but it was also at a point in my life where I had suffered loss the year before. So my grandfather passed away, and we were extremely close. We were like best friends. Like I went everywhere with him from the time I was born. I just wanted to be in his shadow every time we went to go visit. And so I think that a level of greatness, I feel like spiritually something's unleashed when someone close to you who loves you dies, and it pushes you to a whole nother level of success and adventure and openness to life. It lets you know how precious life is and how you have to seize the dash. That's what I call it, seize the dash, because you don't get that dash in between where you're born and when you die.
Yes,
You got to seize the dash. And so that's what that's what I think about every day. So
love it. And are you a book reader or a song listener?
um I used to read a lot of books. Lately, and because I have a lot of national best-selling authors and New York Times best-selling authors who are also clients. So I read a lot of books previously. Maybe 10 years ago, I stopped because I just got super busy. But songs kind of inspire me. I
So
like gospel
what
songs.
okay, I was gonna say, what song? Give us a song that people can listen to after the show to get an idea of who you are.
Um, I would say uh, I Surrender All is one of my favorites. I think
I
because
surrender all.
yes, I it's one of my favorites because it reminds me that God is not only omnipresent, but he's all powerful. And that I always say that before greatness comes relenting. There's a moment where any way you bless me, I'm cool. That's surrendering all of what you think your wants and desires are to God and asking him to align it with his divine purpose for why you were created. And so I surrender all. And
Loving
so
it.
daily I surrender all. Any way you bless me, I'm fine.
What is the most exotic place you've ever been?
Oh wow, I travel. So I mean before
I
COVID,
know.
I traveled.
I was thinking you were like probably a traveler.
Yeah, one of my favorite places was Japan, because coming from the United States, it was like a culture shock. I enjoyed it, but also when I got back to the United States, I guess it's what you're used to. I was so happy to get back, but it was like, I think the level of respect, the kindness,
Mm.
the patience, the grace that they exercise to each other and everyone. I mean, so when I got there, I wasn't thinking. I just when I travel, I'm thinking about being warm on the plane. My worst fear is being cold. So I always have hoodies I travel with, the hooded sweatshirts and everything that I travel with. And so I just grabbed one, and it happened to be a really studded, embossed picture of President Obama. And so I just grabbed it. I wasn't thinking. I didn't pay attention to what I had on. I was like a hoodie. And I put it on when I came down the escalator at the airport entering Japan. At first arriving to Japan, I'm coming down the escalator and the people start chanting Obama. And I felt like a celebrity. I was like, what is going on? They're like, Obama, Obama. And then the people start turning around and they're looking at me. They loved Obama that much. They started chanting because they
Wow.
saw my sweatshirt. And so I felt like this is a crazy welcome to a country, but it was fun. And I loved it. And I think besides that, Italy, because I did I think 11 cities in 2.5 weeks. And so one of my girlfriends lived in um oh gosh, what was that city? Not Venice. It was right outside Venice. It'll come to me. But she lived there, and so she invited me to come. She had a beautiful home there, and that was one of the most amazing trips. And so I saw so much, I experienced so much, and I just loved it. The water taxis in Venice, I love that piece, and it was just an adventure. So those are my two favorite places. But I've traveled the entire Caribbean, so I think the islands. I love being near the water. So cruising is my favorite type of vacation. But my most exotic or beautiful places I've been that intrigued me were Japan and Italy.
Nice. I've not been on a cruise yet.
You must do it once it becomes safe again, hopefully.
When it becomes safe again and you want to come do a cruise down this way, you and I can go cruise.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Go do
I'm down to
Australia.
travel. Yes.
So do you create to live or live to create?
Um, I think sometimes it's both because we talked about survival. So I think coming into the entertainment industry, looking back all those years, it saved my life. Being there for creatives who I started off with comedians, and I didn't realize that they turned their pain into laughter in some magical way and heal the world. And that's why they're so good at it. The best comedians are so good at it because they're used to turning their pain or the
Yeah.
darkness into something that's a healing light for the world. And people relate to them because they're speaking from a point of authority. You know what I mean? But then other times, like I said, I enjoy being around creatives. One of the things I enjoy on Clubhouse so much is I've met some amazing singers in the last week or so, and it really revitalized my soul. And so just being around creatives, gives me life. So I guess it's a little bit of both, depending on where I am.
Yes. Yeah, there are so many creatives on there. I have found my people.
Yes.
Ah.
I mean, the singers tag me. I mean, their voices are incredible. And so now they ping me into rooms so I can hear them or, I love it. That gives me life. And so that's one of the things I was doing last night and couldn't sleep.
Clubhouse, and she was clubbing, y'all. Clubbing used to be
Yeah, I
something
don't I
else.
don't get
Now it
caught up on the talk per se unless I'm going to be on stage, but the singing and when they have talent competitions and stuff, I'm all in. And so I can't put my phone down. I'm listening, listening, listening.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talent competitions on there now. It's
Yes.
kind of
Yes,
cool. I've
it is.
debated doing one, but I'm like, yeah, no. I might have to hold one of my own because my kind of singing is completely different. It's spontaneous song. It's unscripted. It's not written ahead of time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I don't. Yeah. So it doesn't fit in the in what they're doing. Anyway, what's been your greatest, or who has been your greatest influence? They can be dead or alive.
I would say a combination of my four grandparents. I was blessed to get to know all of them. I actually, at the opening of my book, Just One Thing, I actually dedicate that to my grandparents, expressly. My paternal grandfather, who died soonest, I think I was 7 years old, but we forged a bond that still touches my life when I think about the moments I shared with him. So getting to know them individually, because they were amazing people in their own right, and I have a little bit of all of them in me, they are probably my greatest influences. My grandmother, on my maternal side, my grandparents, they weren't able to finish school, but they were some of the most wise people I've ever met. And my grandmother, she had to leave school in 10th grade because to take care of her mom, who was gravely ill. And my grandfather, he had to start working, I think maybe sixth, seventh grade, something like that. But they were some of the most wise people, and they instilled spirituality. They instilled faith in God in me. They instilled you can do anything. They gave birth to greatness, and so little becomes much when you place in the master's hand. And so they placed their six children, who were my mom and her five brothers, into God's hand, and they birthed greatness. And so the first Black fire chief in a major city, Greensboro, North Carolina, was my oldest uncle. The next one was a lieutenant of the fire department in Washington, D.C. My mom was an educator before she retired, and counselor. And then and one was vice president of a large brewery company, major brewing company in the United States and probably internationally. But in terms of where their products go. But they gave birth to greatness. So little becomes much when you place it in the master's hands. And my parents, they instilled a balance of you can do anything, but be careful.
Be wise while you're out
Right,
there.
exactly.
All right. The last question of my 10 questions is, what one word describes you best?
I've never been asked that question. Let me think.
It's
Genuine.
changed for me over the years.
I think
Genuine.
genuine, because that's what people say most. You're always the same, no matter who you're around. And so I think being genuine, my father used to requote Rudyard Kipling to me and say, if you can walk with kings and queens and never lose the common touch, that's when you'll be a woman. Never lose the common touch. So no matter who I'm meeting with, from the White House to the world of boxing to studios all over the country, I'm always the same. And so I just have me, and I want the best for you. And so I give that same energy no matter who it is.
I love it. There are my 10 questions. They're roughly. Yeah, everybody says they have fun with them. Like I rarely get done with an interview where somebody doesn't say this was fun.
It was a great question.
If you have not been on an interview for me and you want to, send me a message because I would love to talk to you. Okay. So entertainment business. Mm-hmm. But recently you wrote a book. Is that right?
I did. Yes.
So let's see if I can find it. This one.
Yes.
Just one thing. Can you tell us a little bit about what that book is?
That book is defining moments in my life from the standpoint of being at a crossroad, like I kind of alluded to earlier, where I was a professional engineer and I said, God, there's got to be something else for me. I'm good at it, but when you're not aligned with that thing you're meant to do. And so I don't think that entertainment is what I was meant to do. I think that's the arena God placed me in to be a catalyst for change, a catalyst for inspiration. So it's not what you do necessarily, it's where you're positioned and then you thrive in your natural gifts. They always say your gifts will make room for you, but I think it's positioning. So God positioned me in the entertainment industry because that's where I would be a beacon of light, a beacon of hope in what people consider a dark world. So it talks about how I stretched out on faith after I got that epiphany that God was going to reposition me, and how I met General Colin Powell, and Robert L. Johnson at the height of BET Studios, and Paul Mooney, whom in the States they regard as the godfather of comedy, because he's written for everybody from Roseanne Barr to Richard Pryor, and had his own thriving career, for many, many years. And so, and also D.L. Hughley, who's also an international figure, and Politico in the United States now, but national comedian and writer and author. Those four men, I unexpectedly met them, but they mentored me. They instilled hope. D.L. Hughley said, "You're going to have your own company. You're going to kill this game." And so, because people are going to love working with you. And so I think it's about positioning, and then God surrounding you with angels that the Bible says they have charge over you. So that means to protect you and guide you. And, so I think there are walking angels on earth everywhere, and different estates, so it's not like high or low, anyone can be a blessing, anyone can be an angel, anyone can be a catalyst for your next step and to guide you through that thing you're meant to do.
Girl, and that's the whole thing. Like when we're given a platform, it's about the message that we bring to the world, that
Exactly.
message of hope for you, that message of, you get to choose what happens in your life. The crossroads are yours to choose which way you go. And also to be that light that says, yeah, it can be hard, but it can also be so good.
Yes. I think when you're in line with your purpose, when you're in line with the thing you were created to do, it's not hard. I think when we start to share our plans with God, it gets real challenging, because our plans have nothing to do with why we were born, so people always say, if you want to make God laugh, show him your plans. So I think the challenge is when you're not in line and you're trying to insert what you think you should do, as opposed to waiting for divine order, divine intervention, because I always say you don't have to struggle for a blessing. And it's a blessing to be aligned with that which you're created to do. And so if you mess up being you, you have defied the universe. So there's no messing it up.
The thing is why God would laugh. Because at first I was like, oh, he wouldn't laugh. But then I went, no, he does, because he has bigger plans for us than we can even think or imagine. And so he chuckles because, oh, that's just such a little thing. I've got something better for you. Like, I've got something bigger for you. We are designed for greatness. We are created to seize this world if we choose that we'd like to.
Exactly.
We are given the choice to enter into it or not. I mean, that is our choice. That's okay. We won't go. That got heavy just for a minute, because I realized there's people that are choosing not to, or that feel like they don't have a choice, but they really do. Power of decision.
Well, I think sometimes we think they don't have a choice, but whatever they do is what they were created to do. It might not be logically what makes sense to us if we think about it. Like, oh, you're supposed to do more than that. How do we know? How do we know? They may have been a catalyst for change in some way we never saw. And then, their dash was over. So how do we know they didn't fulfill their divine purpose just because it didn't look the way we thought it should look for them?
Oh my gosh, that reminds me of this guy that used to come through. I have to tell this story. My first husband worked in a grocery store, and this guy would come through, and he was stinky and smelly and just like really old.
Wow. Okay.
When he died, his obituary was like, oh my goodness, that's who that was. That's what he's done in his life. Like, he had been a space scientist, like, and had helped like build one of the rockets or something that went to the moon. Like, I was just like, okay, so no judgment, right? We can't judge based on how people look today, what they've done in their life, because you don't know
their journey. You really don't.
You don't know if it's been bad or good, right? So don't judge, love, embrace, get to know the person, ask them questions. Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that people fulfill their purpose, the reason they were created, even if it's their last breath. They fulfill it. Because, like I said, to not be you is to defy the universe, and everything that has been created. And so I don't think we're powerful enough to defy the universe and divine order for your life. There's a reason you were birthed. There's a reason you came to be. And even if it doesn't look the way we think, because we look at people and say, oh, you could be so much more than what you're doing right now. But we're looking at it through our eyes, not through God's eyes. Maybe that person was sent just to say one word to one person. They meet 75 years later, and then they're out of here. How do we know? Maybe they went through their whole life journey so they could say with authority that one thing to one person, and then they're gone.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That got deep, because you could yeah. Well, we judge, though. We judge. And I think being in the entertainment business, you see that, right? Like you see the entertainers being judged, and you also see the attitudes of the entertainers and the managers, and like that first one that you came up against, and it was like, tell her I'm on a, like, he wouldn't even talk to you, right? He's telling them to tell you, and it's like you're standing right there. Right, you're standing there talking to him, and he's talking about you, right? And so
it's in the book. That story is in the book, and it's in totality. But yeah, I think but I've never been afraid to be who I am, to graciously explain how inappropriate what you're trying to do is. And this is how we're going to do it. And so even at a young age, so I think it inspires people to reposition how they see themselves, and find their own path, because your journey is never like anyone else's. And like you said, the entertainment industry, I'm guilty of it, because sometimes I see people who have amazing talent, and I'm thinking, oh, what could happen with you? What could happen? And then it doesn't happen. I used to be devastated, but they're fulfilling their purpose still. It just wasn't what I thought they should be doing. And I was like, oh man, so what's your Sunday school teacher now? But you sang like Patti LaBelle. How'd that happen? You know what I mean? But maybe that's what they were destined to do. Who am I to say what their journey is supposed to look like? And if that's where they are, then they're on that path. I don't know what the rest of their life looks like. I don't know who they were sent to touch or to be a blessing to or to instill something in. Maybe they went through all that singing, all that touring to become a Sunday school teacher and inspire one life. How do I know?
We don't know. We can't know.
It gets deep, like you said. It gets deep. We don't know.
So how do you maintain your identity in the presence of those who want to take over the room?
I think that, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. The sun is going to shine. Even you don't have the power to encapsulate and stop the sun from shining. So I think when God gives you something, there's a light that you have in that place he's positioned you to shine. You can't block me out. Even if I wear blinders, put a bag over my head, that's how radiant the energy God gave me is. Even if you in front of me, someone's going to say, wait, who's that behind you? Someone's going to see the glow and coming from other sides of you, even if you try to block me out. So that's never been a consideration of mine. I know that they're going to see the glow that God gave me. It's bigger than me. It's not about me, Charmel. It's about the energy God put in me that's undeniable,
Was there ever a time when you thought someone walked in the door and you went, oh my gosh, like you fanned out? Are you the fangirl or are you not the fangirl?
Typically, I'm not the fangirl. Everyone is pretty much this. I see people as people, because I work with so many entertainers, so many celebrities, so many huge things, people that people consider huge icons. I work with them and talk to them on a daily basis. But I think I fan out over weird stuff. Like I fanned out a little bit when I met Morris Day, who's part of the Paisley Park family and Prince and all of that. I fanned out because I loved his music. I think it's that whole energy of Prince and Paisley Park and, all the albums and the music of my youth. I think I fanned out a little bit with him. When I first started working with the boxing family, the Mayweathers, and I was at the father's house for the first time. I fanned out for about 30 seconds, like, oh my God, I'm with the Mayweathers, and so that was different for me because I grew up seeing him in the boxing ring, the father, and then, watch the son escalate to become what they consider one of the greatest ever. And so working and meeting with those men was a kind of weird, different. It was different. I wouldn't say I fanned out, but it was just like, oh my gosh. And then they became regular people to me, so I kind of detached somehow mentally, and it's not about the person, it's about what they need me to do or what they need my help with.
It's so funny because a lot of the names that you mention, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I could meet them and talk to them and not even know who I'm talking to. And I have to wonder how much that actually happens in the world, where somebody's like really famous in one area, but they're not known somewhere else, and they end up colliding. I see that happening all the time in Clubhouse. Like, we'll be talking to people and then we'll look on their bio after they leave the room or whatever. And I'm like, oh, wow. Look what he's done. But while they were in the room, you were just talking. You didn't even think about it. It didn't enter your mind. Like, people are people. And what I'm finding in Clubhouse, and maybe you found something different, is that there's a whole lot of people who are the entertainers who are just happy to be one of the people.
Yeah.
Like, it's a place for them to be accepted and not judged for who they are in entertainment.
Yeah, I think my mom was the one who said to me, she said, I think that's the draw, because you treat them like they're everybody else. You don't treat them a certain way. You don't speak a certain way. You don't, sit up straight, or you don't do any of that. You're just you, and they can just be them. And I think that's why the relationships have lasted so long. They feel so comfortable working with me. They feel so comfortable talking to me, and so even one of my platforms I have now, beyond just one thing, the show, is It Is What It Is, How Men Think. So it's a lot of American celebrities, sports figures, professional athletes, multi-platinum producers coming on, and they're like, they just seem like regular people talking to you. So you get to see what I see all the time. They are just regular people. They're regular guys. They have the same feelings, the same fears, the same frustrations of relationships and love and life that you have. They just do it on a public platform, and you love one thing they do. That's the only difference between them and you. Maybe how they expend their time. They might put more time in. You're getting ready to go to sleep. They're about to work 24 hours. So that's the difference.
Yeah, they're about to put themselves in front of a camera for 24 hours. So that's why you know who they are. That's why you see them. That's why you, and what we do often, though, is we identify them as that person.
Right.
And that's just a piece of them. That is just a piece of them.
Small piece.
Very small. Yeah. And when you get to know the people behind the scenes, they're people.
They're just people. I always tell people there's no such thing as greatness. What there is how you spend your time. So there's no difference between the top athlete and you. It's just how they spent their time. So you could go out and shoot, 52,000 basketball shots until you mastered it, since you were 3 years old, or you could work at the drugstore. It's how you decide to do your time, so they decide to do something different with their time. And so it shows.
Yeah, exactly. So the one last thing that I would love to talk about, just for a few minutes, I have about 10 more minutes that I can probably go, is using your platform and doing the philanthropy work, because I know that you do some things where you help. Could you tell us a little bit about that, and tell us the importance, or not the importance, but the opportunity that's available for people who have a platform to actually bring forth something that is of substance and, helping others, basically.
Okay. Well, my philanthropic work includes being on the board of directors for the Children's Cancer Foundation for almost 25 years now, the longest standing board member on the foundation. And that's afforded me to work with so many oncologists and top doctors doing research and development programs for children with cancer. And that afforded a long-standing relationship with Dr. Ben Carson when he was head of oncology and head of our medical board of directors for the foundation. And so that's where that long-standing friendship came with him and Candy, and I watched the boys grow up. So that was rewarding. Also, New York Mayor Mike Bloomberg, who actually ran for president, I met him at a dedication ceremony for the Bloomberg Center, which was erected in honor of his mother. That's on the campus of Johns Hopkins Hospital as well. And so it's opened up a lot of relationships and to be even closer to people who've done amazing things in the medical field. My other philanthropic work includes my own foundation that I created and established, CTE Vision Foundation Incorporated, and that is for exceptionally talented disadvantaged and disenfranchised youth who need a leg up on building vision, creating opportunities, educating them on things that are available in the entertainment industry. And you don't have to be on stage, to teach them how you can have really viable careers and be behind the scenes. And oftentimes that's where the money is made anyway. And so we educate, inspire young people. We have comedy clinics, music clinics, film clinics. I basically use the relationships I've been blessed with to be a blessing to kids and to put a smile on their faces and educate them at the same time and create platforms for them. In terms of the other two things I do that are not necessarily philanthropic, but I think still giving back, I mentioned one platform, which is It Is What It Is, How Men Think. That's men talking love, life, relationships. But I started a new platform because I thought after my book sold out several times, how could I continue to be a blessing? And that is Just One Thing, the show. And so I do several shows per week, highlighting other people's defining moments, other people's life-changing moments, death-defying sometimes moments, things that they thought they couldn't endure, but they did. And not only that, it pushed them closer to the reality of why they're here and allowed them to see life differently and develop a greater appreciation for themselves and how they move during that dash, that time in which you have to thrive while you're alive. And so I do those interviews. So if anyone has a story to share, you can hit me up on shartown.com or any of the social media things that are listed on my website. And also the book is available at shartown.com.
Oh, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to share with the world? Here's your opportunity. The ones who see this video may not be the whole world, but a few hundred to a few thousand.
That Cyndilu Miller is absolutely awesome. And she was a huge blessing meeting her. I enjoyed interviewing her on my show. I have enjoyed 10 times more being on here and having fun with her again. And I think that's another part of divine order, because I fought being on Clubhouse for so long. And then I meet so many amazing spirits, so many amazing souls who are doing things on other sides of the world. And it's just exciting. It's a blessing. I consider her one of my sisters in love. And it's just been a blessing. And so I'm honored to be here. I had a great time. Thank you for sharing your platform. Thank you for coming onto my platform. And let's continue to work and fellowship.
Yeah, and I have an idea that I'm going to pass by you after the show.
Okay. Sounds great.
I think we could have a rockin' room on Clubhouse together. So yes. For those of you, if you're not on Clubhouse, you might want to get there. And I hear that Android will be in a couple of months.
Okay.
So we could also bring it to this platform.
That's true.
We're going to. But
let's talk. Let me know what you're thinking.
I'm cooking something up in my little brain, and I'm just thinking, you might be the perfect person to do it with. I have learned that I like doing things with people. I always understood that I love collaborating, but I literally want to do things with. Like, I don't want to do them for you. I can create do-it-yourself stuff, but it doesn't energize me. You got to go with what energizes you. Got to grab a hold of that. The other thing that energizes me is helping authors to get their word out about their new books or the books that they wrote a while ago, and just to keep it going. So thank you for coming on and sharing about Just One Thing and your Just One Thing the show. and your It Is What It Is with the men and all the things that you're doing. I am absolutely amazed. Thrilled to have you here, and
Thank you.
love to have you back again sometime.
Anytime.
We'll come up with a topic and we will be back, folks. So thank you to all my listeners. This was recorded live on Facebook for my podcast. And if you're listening to it, remember to always live your life out loud and be bold you.